To make sure no one could ever accuse her of showing favoritism, my mother forced me to take part in our university's annual blood donation campaign, even though my medical records clearly showed I suffered from severe chronic anemia. The donation bus was parked outside the student center at a prestigious university in Manhattan. A long line of students stretched across the courtyard, chatting excitedly while volunteers handed out snacks and souvenir t-shirts. Colorful banners praised community service, generosity, and civic responsibility. I stood near the entrance, clutching the doctor's exemption letter in my trembling hands. "I'm medically exempt," I said quietly. My hematologist specifically warned that I shouldn't donate blood. The young nurse barely glanced at the paper before pushing it aside. Her name tag read Emily Carter. She folded her arms and smirked. Funny how people suddenly discover medical conditions whenever it's time to help someone else. "I really have severe anemia." She rolled her eyes. "Everyone claims something. Stress, low blood pressure, anxiety. If we believed every excuse, nobody would donate." Standing only a few feet away was my mother, Professor Victoria Brooks, head of the university's Student Affairs Department. Instead of defending me, she looked disappointed. "Emma Brooks." Her voice was calm, but every word cut deeper than a knife. "You're my daughter. More than anyone, you should be setting an example." I stared at her in disbelief. "Mom, my doctor said—" "I've already heard enough." She didn't even let me finish. "If you refuse today, people will assume I use my position to protect my own family. Everything I've worked for would be questioned. But I could collapse. So can everyone else." Emily crossed her arms with a satisfied smile. "Exactly." She pointed toward several students who had just finished donating. They each gave nearly 500 milliliters without complaining. Then she looked back at me with open contempt. "And you haven't even started?" Students nearby began whispering, "Isn't that the department director's daughter?" "I heard she's always getting special treatment." "Guess not today." I wanted to disappear. Slowly I sat in the donation chair. Emily tightened the elastic band around my arm much harder than necessary. "There we go." The needle slid into my vein. Cold spread through my body almost immediately. The collection bag slowly filled with dark red blood. At first I tried convincing myself I would be okay. Just breathe. Just get through this. After barely 100 milliliters, black spots began dancing across my vision. My fingers became numb. My heartbeat echoed violently inside my ears. My voice barely came out. "I don't feel well." Emily didn't even look up. "Everyone says that." "No." My breathing became uneven. "I think I'm going to faint." She sighed dramatically. "Seriously?" Then she laughed loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Only 100 milliliters and she's already quitting." Several students chuckled. Someone muttered, "That's embarrassing." I reached toward the tubing, hoping to stop the donation myself. Before my fingers could touch it, Emily grabbed my wrist, hard. "What do you think you're doing?" "I can't." My vision blurred even more. "I need to stop." She forced my hand back onto the armrest. "No. Please. If every student acted like you, hospitals wouldn't have enough blood for emergencies." Then she leaned closer so only I could hear. "People who fake illnesses just to avoid donating deserve to give twice as much." I felt my stomach twist. I looked desperately toward my mother. She hadn't moved. Instead, she watched me with folded arms. Disappointment filled her face. "Emma." Her voice remained perfectly controlled. "Stop embarrassing yourself." "I'm not pretending." "You've always been dramatic." "I really can't breathe." She sighed. "Everyone is watching." Her words hurt more than the needle. "If you get up now, they'll think I forced everyone else's children while making excuses for my own." Emily smiled. "See? Your mother understands responsibility." The blood bag continued filling. 150 milliliters, 200. The room began spinning. Voices sounded distant, almost underwater. My hands were freezing. Sweat rolled down my forehead despite the air conditioning inside the bus. I couldn't finish the sentence. My chest tightened violently. For one terrifying moment, my heart seemed to skip an entire beat. Everything around me blurred into streaks of color. I heard someone say, "She looks really pale." Another voice answered, "She's probably acting." Emily didn't slow the machine. Instead, she adjusted the tubing. "Relax. It'll be over soon." My lips had already turned white. I could barely stay conscious. Still, no one. The collection bag kept filling. 250 milliliters, then 300. Every second felt longer than the last. My ears rang so loudly that I could barely hear the conversations around me. My fingertips had gone completely numb. My heartbeat was no longer steady. It pounded wildly, then seemed to disappear altogether before crashing back with painful force. I can't. The words barely escaped my lips. Emily glanced at the monitor before shaking her head impatiently. You've barely got a little more left. I need to stop. She clicked her tongue. You're unbelievable. Without warning, she tightened the tourniquet even more. Pain shot through my arm. I gasped. Nearby, a few students exchanged uncertain glances. She really doesn't look okay. Another shrugged. If something were actually wrong, Professor Brooks would have stopped it. Exactly. That's her own daughter. No mother would let this happen if it were serious. Their voices faded in and out as darkness crept into the edges of my vision. I looked at my mother one last time. She stood perfectly composed beside the donation table, greeting faculty members who walked past. When our eyes met, she frowned. Emma. There wasn't an ounce of concern in her expression. Sit still. I struggled to breathe. My heart. You've always exaggerated everything. Emily nodded in agreement. She's trying to manipulate everyone. Then she addressed the students waiting in line. See this? She pointed directly at me. This is why some people never grow up. Community service means sacrifice. If everyone behaved like her, nobody would ever receive life-saving transfusions. Several students nodded. Someone even applauded. The humiliation burned hotter than the dizziness. I wanted to explain. To tell them I had medical records, that I had iron infusions only months earlier, that donating this much blood could genuinely put my life in danger, but every breath felt heavier than the last. The words never came. 350 milliliters. The blood bag looked almost full. Emily smiled with satisfaction. There. I knew you could do it. I couldn't feel my legs anymore. The fluorescent lights above me stretched into long white lines. The ceiling seemed impossibly far away. Then, everything went black for a split second. My body lurched forward uncontrollably. The movement pulled the needle sideways inside my vein. A sharp pain shot through my arm. Blood immediately began flowing backward through the tubing. Emily let out an irritated sigh. Oh, come on, she grabbed my shoulder roughly. Can you stop moving? Instead of checking whether I was conscious, she yanked the needle out with a quick jerk. Fresh blood spilled down my forearm. I didn't react, my head hung limply to one side. Emily frowned. Emma? No answer. She snapped her fingers in front of my face. Nothing. Rather than calling for help, she scoffed. So now we're pretending to pass out? She picked up another sterile needle. If you're going to waste my time? Without another word, she pushed it into my arm again. She missed the vein. I felt nothing. Emily frowned. Oops. She withdrew it, then stabbed again. Missed. Again and again. Dark bruises quickly spread beneath my skin. Students watching nearby winced. That looked painful. Emily finally found the vein on the fourth attempt. There. See? Not so difficult. She restarted the donation as if nothing had happened. A male student near the front of the line hesitated. Shouldn't somebody call an ambulance? Emily laughed. An ambulance? For someone pretending to faint? Professor Brooks answered before anyone else could. My daughter has always been dramatic. She's hoping everyone feels sorry for her. I assure you, she's perfectly fine. The student looked embarrassed. Oh, I guess I misunderstood. Another girl whispered. I almost believed her. Professor Brooks folded her arms. If I make exceptions simply because she's my daughter, what message does that send? I hold my own family to a higher standard. Several faculty members standing nearby nodded approvingly. That's real integrity. She's an incredible administrator. So fair. So principled. Their praise filled the room. Meanwhile, my head slowly slipped farther to one side. My breathing had stopped. No one noticed. For several long seconds, nobody moved. Emily kept organizing the collection tubes as if everything were perfectly normal. She never checked my pulse. She never called my name again. She simply assumed I was still putting on a performance. Professor Brooks looked at me with visible irritation. Emma, that's enough. Get up. When I didn't respond, her patience disappeared. She walked over to the donation chair and grabbed my shoulder. The force caused my limp body to slide sideways. I fell heavily onto the floor. The impact echoed through the donation bus. Several students gasped. My God, she hit her head. Emily frowned, clearly annoyed that everyone was suddenly staring. She hurried over, not to examine me, but to protect herself. See? I told you. She's making a scene. She crouched beside me and gave my shoulder a light shake. Emma, you can stop now. No response. She sighed dramatically before looking toward Professor Brooks. I don't know what else to do. She's refusing to cooperate. We still haven't officially recorded the full donation. Professor Brooks' face darkened. So she's still trying to force me into making an exception. Emily lowered her voice. Earlier, she even hinted that because she's your daughter, I should write down fewer milliliters so she'd still receive participation credit. She implied she'd report me if I refused. The accusation hit like another knife. I wanted to scream. I never said anything remotely like that. But no sound came. Professor Brooks looked genuinely disappointed. I can't believe you've become this entitled. She stepped closer. You think your last name gives you privileges? You've embarrassed me enough. Before anyone could react, she kicked me. Her shoe struck my side with enough force to roll my body across the floor. A shocked silence filled the bus. One freshman covered his mouth. Another whispered, "Did she just—" Emily quickly interrupted. Professor Brooks is only trying to wake her. She's probably exaggerating again. No one challenged her. Everyone trusted the respected department director. Professor Brooks stood over me. If you're pretending to be unconscious, you can lie there all day. She pressed the heel of her shoe down onto my wrist. Hard. The bones beneath her weight made a faint cracking sound. Still, I didn't move. The students became visibly uncomfortable. One girl quietly asked, Professor, maybe we really should call campus medical services. Professor Brooks shook her head. My daughter knows exactly what she's doing. She wants attention. The more people indulge this behavior, the worse it becomes. Emily nodded immediately. I've seen students fake panic attacks before exams. This is no different. She looked toward the line of waiting donors. I'm sorry, everyone. She has delayed the schedule. We'll finish here in just a moment. Several students sighed in frustration. I've got class in 20 minutes. This is ridiculous. It's just blood. Why make such a huge production out of it? Someone laughed. Imagine pretending to die because you don't want a needle. The words echoed through the bus. Pretending. Every person believed it, because the two adults with the most authority had already decided the truth for everyone else. Just then, the door of the donation bus opened. A middle-aged administrator stepped inside after hearing the commotion. He looked around the crowded bus before noticing me lying motionless on the floor. His expression changed instantly. What happened here? Emily smiled politely. Nothing serious. One student became emotional during the donation. Professor Brooks stepped forward before anyone else could answer. She's my daughter. She's refusing to cooperate because she doesn't want to donate. The administrator looked uncertain. Shouldn't someone at least examine her? Professor Brooks sighed. She's perfectly healthy. She's simply throwing a tantrum. I know my own daughter. The administrator hesitated for several seconds. Then he slowly nodded. If that's the case, I suppose it's a family matter. He turned around and left the bus. The door closed behind him. No ambulance was called, no doctor arrived, and no one realized. I had already been dead for several minutes. The blood donation bus slowly returned to its routine. Students stepped forward one after another, extending their arms as if nothing unusual had happened. Emily calmly replaced the blood collection bag and disinfected the chair. Then she looked down at my motionless body. Can someone help move her outside? Two male students hesitated. Isn't she unconscious? Emily let out a small laugh. She's pretending. Trust me. I've dealt with dramatic people like this before. Professor Brooks didn't even glance in my direction. Take her outside. If she wants attention, she can wait there until she's ready to apologize. The two students exchanged uneasy looks. Neither wanted to argue with the department director. Carefully, they lifted me beneath my arms. My head hung backward unnaturally. One of them frowned. She's freezing. His friend immediately whispered, She's been inside with the air conditioning. That's probably why. Emily nodded confidently. Exactly. Don't overthink it. They carried me down the bus steps and gently laid my body on the concrete sidewalk beside the student center. The afternoon sun beat down relentlessly. Within minutes, the white fabric of my shirt became damp with sweat and dried blood. Students walking across campus slowed as they passed. Some stared, some whispered, others simply kept walking. A girl stopped beside me. "Should we help her?" Before anyone could answer, Emily exited the bus carrying a clipboard. She overheard the question and smiled politely. "Oh, don't worry. She's staging a protest." The girl blinked. "Really?" Emily sighed dramatically. She wanted special treatment because her mother works here. When she didn't get her way, she decided to lie on the ground. Several students nearby laughed. "I knew it. That's so childish. Imagine embarrassing your own mother like that." The girl who had wanted to help looked uncomfortable. "Oh, I thought something serious happened." Professor Brooks walked past a few moments later. She didn't stop, didn't kneel beside me, didn't check whether I was breathing. She simply looked down with disappointment. If she chooses to stay there, leave her. Eventually, she'll realize no one is paying attention. Then she continued toward the administration building without looking back. Hours passed. The donation campaign continued until late afternoon. One by one, students finished donating and headed back to their dorms. Many noticed me still lying in exactly the same position. A few became uneasy. "She's still there. Hasn't she moved at all?" Another student shrugged. "If Professor Brooks isn't worried, we shouldn't interfere." Someone else added, "Besides, Emily said she's faking. She probably wants someone to beg her to get up." The small crowd slowly dispersed. No one called emergency services. No one checked for a pulse. No one realized the faint metallic smell drifting through the warm summer air wasn't simply spilled blood. As the sun climbed higher, the pavement grew scorching hot. The campus gradually emptied. Only a handful of maintenance workers remained outside. Near the flower beds, two stray cats wandered across the courtyard. One suddenly stopped. Its nose twitched. Slowly, it turned toward my body. Another cat followed, then another. They approached cautiously. Watching from above, I wanted to scream, "Run, please. Someone notice me. Notice that I'm not pretending." But my voice no longer belonged to the living. The entire campus continued with its ordinary afternoon. Classes ended, coffee shops filled, students laughed, cars rushed through Manhattan traffic beyond the university gates. Life moved forward. Mine had already ended, yet no one had realized it. As evening settled over the campus, the blood donation event finally came to an end. Students slowly drifted away, rubbing the small bandages on their arms while chatting about dinner plans and upcoming exams. Near the sidewalk, a sophomore glanced toward me again. "She's seriously been lying there this whole time." His friend looked uneasy. "Maybe we should check on her." Before either of them could move, Emily walked out of the student center carrying the completed donation records. She overheard them immediately. "I wouldn't." Both students looked at her. "Why not?" Emily smiled as though she were offering friendly advice. "People like Emma know exactly how to manipulate kind-hearted strangers. They pretend something terrible happened. Then suddenly you're responsible for paying hospital bills." The boys exchanged nervous looks. "You really think she'd do that?" Emily shrugged. "I've seen worse." Another student who had witnessed the donation earlier joined the conversation. "She's always depended on the fact that Professor Brooks runs the department. When things don't go her way, she throws a fit. Today, she embarrassed the entire university." The concern on everyone's faces slowly disappeared. One by one, they walked away. Watching from above, I felt strangely empty, not angry, not frightened, just tired. How easily a lie became truth when the right person said it first. Emily watched the crowd disperse with quiet satisfaction. Then she adjusted the stack of paperwork in her hands and headed toward the administration building. A few minutes later, she knocked gently on the open office door. Professor Brooks looked up from behind her desk. "Come in." Emily smiled warmly. "The blood donation records are ready." She placed the clipboard on the desk. "If everything looks correct, I just need your signature." Professor Brooks scanned the pages carefully. When she reached my name, her expression softened slightly. "Emma Brooks, 500 milliliters donated." For the first time that day, she looked relieved. "Good. At least she finished what she started. Emily hesitated, lowering her eyes. There is one small problem. Professor Brooks frowned. What is it? Emma is still outside. Professor Brooks sighed. Still? Emily nodded reluctantly. I asked several students to help her up, but she said, Emily paused just long enough to appear uncomfortable, that unless you personally apologized, she wasn't moving. Professor Brooks' face hardened immediately. I've spoiled her far too much. Emily spoke carefully. I know she's your daughter, but she's been lying there for hours. Maybe just this once? Perhaps you could talk to her? Professor Brooks stood up abruptly. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. No. If I give in now, she'll think emotional blackmail works. Emily nodded sympathetically. I understand. Professor Brooks folded her arms. Leave her where she is. If she wants to stay on the sidewalk all night, that's her decision. Eventually, she'll get hungry enough to come inside. Outside, the temperature continued to rise, even though the afternoon sun had begun to sink lower between Manhattan's skyscrapers. My body remained exactly where it had been left. The bruises covering my arm had turned deep shades of purple and blue. Dry blood stained the sleeve of my white shirt. A warm breeze carried an odor that no living person seemed willing to recognize. Not far away, the same stray cats had returned. This time they came closer, much closer. I wanted to look away. I couldn't. I drifted helplessly above the campus, silently begging someone, anyone, to realize I had never been pretending at all. What really happened behind the university's perfect reputation? To be continued in Season 2?